The plasma round tore through the hull plating 3 meters from where Commander Jake Morrison stood. He didn't flinch. Around him, the Galactic Defense Station trembled as another volley from the Krathan fleet hammered into its shields. Red emergency lights painted the command center in blood, and the air tasted of ozone and fear. "Shields at 18%, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez called out, her fingers dancing across her console. "They're preparing another salvo." Jake watched the tactical display with cold calculation. 47 Krathan warships surrounded the station, their weapons charging with an ominous glow. Behind him, 36 species from across the galaxy huddled in various states of panic. The Valorians, tall and crystalline, hummed anxiously. The Quasari, small and furred, chittered prayers to gods that weren't listening. None of them had ever seen war like this. None of them had ever seen humans before today either. "Sir, they're hailing us again," Amy said. "Put them through!" The viewscreen flickered to life, revealing the scarred face of Warlord Thrakkus. His 4 eyes blazed with confidence, his mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among his kind. "Unknown species," Thrakkus growled. "You defend a station full of prey. Surrender them, and we will grant you a swift death. Resist, and we will take our time." Jake stepped forward, hands clasped behind his back. "Warlord Thrakkus, I'm Commander Jake Morrison of the Terran Coalition. I'm going to give you one chance to withdraw your fleet." The command center fell silent. Even the alien personnel stopped their panicked movements to stare at him. Thrakkus' mandibles spread wider. "Terran, we have never heard of your species. You command 2 small vessels and defend a dying station. You are either brave or foolish." "We're human," Jake said simply, "and you're about to learn the difference." He cut the transmission before Thrakkus could respond. "Amy, signal the Carter and the Webb." "Execute pattern Omega-7, sir?" Amy's voice carried a hint of concern. "That's a suicide run. For anyone else, maybe." Jake allowed himself a thin smile. "Launch in 30 seconds. And Amy, tell Captain Lisa Grant I owe her a drink when this is over." The lieutenant nodded and began transmitting orders. Around the command center, the alien observers watched in confusion and growing hope. They had heard whispers of humans, legends really, tales of a species from a forgotten corner of the galaxy that supposedly possessed an almost mythical capacity for violence. Most considered them fairy tales, bedtime stories to frighten young ones. The Kratun were about to learn that some myths were real. "Vessels launching," Amy announced. On the tactical display, 2 human frigates, the Carter and the Webb, shot forward from the station's dock. They were small compared to the Krathan dreadnoughts, barely the size of a Krathan destroyer, but they moved with a precision and speed that made several aliens gasp. "Target their flagship," Jake ordered. "Full offensive package." The Carter and Webb split apart in a maneuver that defied every conventional tactical doctrine. They spiraled around each other, weaving through the Krathan formation like dancers performing a deadly ballet. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds filled the space between them, but the human ships dodged and twisted with reflexes that seemed impossible. Then they struck. The Carter unleashed its payload first, a spread of nuclear-tipped missiles that carved through the Krathan shields like they were tissue paper. The Webb followed milliseconds later with a focused beam of coherent energy that punched straight through the flagship's hull. Secondary explosions rippled across the massive vessel's surface as ammunition stores cooked off. "Direct hit," Amy reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Flagship is losing power." Jake watched as the Krathan fleet faltered, their confidence shaken. The flagship, a vessel 3 kilometers long that had terrorized a dozen systems, listed to one side, atmosphere venting from a dozen breaches. "They're regrouping," Amy said, "forming a defensive sphere around their command ship." "Good. They're predictable." Jake turned to the alien personnel. "Evacuate to the lower decks. This is about to get messy." A Valorian officer, his crystalline form refracting the emergency lights, stepped forward. "Commander Morrison, your species fights with a ferocity we have never witnessed. But surely you cannot defeat an entire fleet with 2 ships." Jake met the alien's multifaceted eyes. "Watch us." The station shuddered again as the Krathan fleet opened fire with renewed fury. This time, they weren't aiming for the station. They were trying to destroy the Carter and Webb, pouring thousands of rounds into the space where the human ships danced and weaved. Captain Lisa Grant's voice crackled over the comm. "Jake, we're drawing their fire, but we can't keep this up forever. Whatever you're planning, now would be good." 30 more seconds, Lisa. Keep them focused on you." Jake turned to his tactical officer, Sergeant Kevin Park, a wiry man with quick hands and quicker instincts. "Kevin, tell me you have firing solutions on all 47 ships." "Locked and loaded, sir. The Krathun don't know we upgraded the station's weapons grid. They're about to find out. Fire everything." The station transformed from a defensive position into a weapons platform. Concealed batteries opened across its surface, unleashing a barrage that caught the Krathun fleet completely off guard. Railgun slugs traveling at a fraction of light speed punched through shields and hulls. Missile pods erupted in sequence, each projectile seeking its target with relentless determination. Energy weapons carved brilliant lines across the darkness, superheating armor until it boiled away. 3 Krathun destroyers simply ceased to exist, torn apart by the overwhelming firepower. 2 more collided as their navigation systems failed under electronic warfare attacks that Kevin had slipped into the weapons packages. The defensive sphere collapsed into chaos. "The Webb is breaking through their line," Amy reported. "Captain Grant is making her run on the flagship." Jake watched the tactical display with professional appreciation. Lisa was one of the best pilots in the fleet, and she was proving it now. The Webb dove straight toward the wounded flagship, its weapons firing continuously, each shot calibrated to exploit the weak points Kevin had identified. The flagship's remaining weapons swiveled to track the approaching human vessel. But Lisa was already adjusting her trajectory. She spun the Webb on its axis, presenting the smallest possible target profile while her gunners continued to hammer away at critical systems. "They're launching fighters," Kevin announced. "Looks like 300 plus. "Carter, can you handle them?" Jake asked. Captain Ryan Hughes answered immediately. "With pleasure, Commander. We've been waiting to test the new point defense grid." The Carter pivoted gracefully, its hull bristling with automated weapons. As the Krathun fighters swarmed forward, the human frigate opened up with a wall of fire that turned space into a meat grinder. The Krathun fighters, designed for atmospheric combat and relatively slow by human standards, found themselves outmatched by systems designed to track and destroy incoming missiles. Dozens died in the first 5 seconds. The survivors tried to scatter, but the Carter pursued with mechanical efficiency, its artificial intelligence working in concert with its human crew to predict and eliminate every threat. "Flagship shields are down!" Amy called out. "Captain Grant is going for the kill." Jake leaned forward, watching as the Webb lined up its final approach. The flagship's crew fought desperately, but they were outmatched in every category that mattered. Human reflexes, enhanced by neural implants and centuries of evolutionary pressure, operated on timescales that left other species scrambling to catch up. Human weapons, born from a culture that had perfected the art of killing its own kind for millennia before reaching the stars, cut through alien defenses with brutal efficiency. The Webb fired its main cannon at point-blank range. The concentrated energy beam burned straight through the flagship's command deck, core, and engines. For a moment, the massive vessel hung in space, seemingly intact. Then it came apart, breaking into 3 large sections that tumbled away from each other. The Krathun fleet faltered. Their warlord was dead, their flagship destroyed. A third of their force eliminated, and all by a species they had never heard of until today. "They're retreating," Kevin said, surprise coloring his voice. "The remaining ships are jumping to hyperspace." Jake nodded slowly. "Let them go. They'll spread the word." "What word, sir?" "That humans are real, and that we don't surrender." As the last Krathun vessel vanished into hyperspace, the command center erupted in celebration. Alien personnel who minutes ago had been preparing for death now danced and sang in their various ways. The Valorians created harmonic vibrations that resonated through the deck plates. The Quasari leaped and chittered with joy. Jake allowed himself a moment to breathe. His crew had performed perfectly. But this was just the beginning. He pulled up the station's damage report, scanning through the statistics with a practiced eye. "Commander Morrison," a deep voice said behind him. Jake turned to find himself facing Ambassador Kelvin Thorne, the Galactic Council's representative on the station. Kelvin was Zorathian, a species known for their diplomatic skills and cautious nature. His scaled face betrayed confusion and something that might have been fear. "Ambassador! I trust you're unharmed?" "Thanks to you and your crew." Kelvin's translator rendered his words in perfect English. "But I must ask, Commander Morrison, what exactly are humans? The Council has no record of your species." "We thought you were myths, stories told by fringe explorers who claim to have encountered warriors from the dark reaches of space." Jake considered his answer carefully. The truth was complicated, and not all of it reflected well on humanity's past. But these aliens had just witnessed human combat capability firsthand. They deserved honesty. "We're from a planet called Earth, located in a region your people call the Void. We've been watching the galaxy for about 200 years, studying, learning. Your council never found us because we didn't want to be found." "We needed time to understand the political landscape, to determine if the species out here were threats or potential allies." "And now you reveal yourselves by defending our station," Kelvin said slowly. "Why? 'Cause the Krathun are bullies, and we don't like bullies." Jake gestured to the view screen, where the station's exterior cameras showed the debris field from the battle. "We've been monitoring their expansion for months. They prey on peaceful species, enslave populations, destroy cultures. Someone needed to stop them. But at what cost? Your ships, your crew. They fight with a savagery that frightens me, Commander. Where does such capacity for violence come from?" Jake met the ambassador's eyes. "From necessity, Ambassador. Earth isn't a gentle world. We evolved as apex predators, and we spent most of our history fighting each other. We know war intimately, understand its rhythms and patterns in ways that peaceful species can't. That knowledge, that experience, it's in our blood." Kelvin was quiet for a long moment. "The Council will want to meet your leaders." "This changes everything." "I know. That's why I'm here." 3 days later, Jake stood before the Galactic Council in their grand chamber on the neutral station of Concordia Prime. The chamber was a massive sphere, with delegations from hundreds of species arranged in concentric rings. Holographic displays floated throughout the space, showing real-time translations and data feeds. Jake had brought a small delegation. Amy Rodriguez stood at his right, her uniform crisp and her bearing professional. Kevin Park stood at his left, his eyes constantly scanning the room for threats. Behind them, Captain Lisa Grant and Captain Ryan Hughes represented the military arm of humanity's first contact. The Council's High Arbiter, a luminous named Zephyra, floated at the center of the chamber. Her species existed as clouds of sentient gas contained within force fields that gave them shape and form. Her voice, when she spoke, resonated through every translator simultaneously. "Commander Morrison, Captain Grant, Captain Hughes, welcome to the Galactic Council. Your actions at Defense Station Gamma 9 have created quite a stir among our member species." Jake nodded respectfully. "High Arbiter, we're honored to be here. Are you?" Zephyra's form pulsed with colors Jake's implants interpreted as skepticism. "You arrive unannounced, with weapons and capabilities that exceed our own, and you engage in a battle that by all rights should have resulted in your destruction. Many council members are frightened by what you represent." "We represent humanity," Jake said calmly. "Nothing more, nothing less." A delegate from the Cerulean Assembly, a species of aquatic beings, activated his speaking rights. "Commander, you claim your species has been observing us for 200 years. Why? What have you been planning?" "Survival," Amy interjected, stepping forward slightly. "May I speak, Commander?" Jake nodded, and Amy continued. "When humanity reached the stars, we found evidence of your civilizations everywhere. Advanced technology, peaceful cooperation, trade networks spanning thousands of light years. But we also found something else. Records of species that had been conquered, enslaved, or wiped out by aggressive empires like the Krathun. We realized that revealing ourselves prematurely might make us targets. "So you hid," another delegate said. "This one a Valorian whose crystalline form refracted the chamber's lights into rainbow patterns. You watched as innocents suffered. We prepared," Lisa Grant said, her voice hard. "We built our fleets, trained our crews, developed weapons and tactics. We studied your wars, learned from your victories and defeats. And when we were ready, we acted. By slaughtering 40% of a Krathan fleet," the Cerulean delegate said. "That's not defense. That's an execution." Kevin Park's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Jake raised a hand slightly, a signal for his team to stay calm. "The Krathun declared their intention to kill everyone on that station," Jake said. "They've destroyed 17 colonies in the past year alone. They don't take prisoners, they don't negotiate, they don't show mercy. We gave them a chance to retreat. They chose to fight." "And you destroyed them with ease," Saphira observed. "That's what frightens the Council, Commander. If humans can defeat the Krathan so completely, what's to stop you from turning those weapons on us?" The chamber fell silent. Jake felt hundreds of eyes, sensors, and awareness fields focused on him. This was the moment that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy. He chose his words carefully. "'Cause that's not who we are. Yes, we're good at war. Better than most species in this chamber, probably better than all of you combined. We've had 10,000 years of practice killing each other, and we learned lessons that peaceful civilizations never had to face. But we also learned something else along the way. We learned when to stop fighting." He gestured to the holographic displays showing Earth's history. "My planet has been united for almost 300 years now. We've eliminated poverty, disease, and internal conflict. We did that by choosing cooperation over competition, by deciding that our differences made us stronger rather than weaker. We can be your allies, your friends, your defenders, but only if you're willing to trust us." A new voice entered the discussion, this one belonging to a species Jake didn't recognize. The being was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with thick armor plating and multiple limbs. His translator rendered his speech in a deep, rumbling tone. "I am General Korthax of the Dravian Imperium. My species has fought the Krathan for 60 years. We've lost billions to their aggression. If what you say is true, if humans are truly as capable as you've demonstrated, then we would welcome your alliance. But we need proof that you're not just another warlike species seeking dominance." "What kind of proof?" Lisa asked. "Help us end the Krathan threat?" "Not just defend against them, but actively campaign against their empire. Show us that you fight for justice, not conquest." Jake glanced at his team. Amy nodded slightly. Kevin's expression was neutral, but Jake knew he was calculating probabilities and outcomes. Lisa and Ryan both looked eager, the prospect of more action appealing to their warrior instincts. "We'll need resources," Jake said. "Ships, supplies, intelligence on Krathan positions and capabilities. And we'll need political support from the Council. If we're going to war, we do it with legitimacy." Zafira's form pulsed with colors Jake's implants couldn't quite interpret. "You ask for much, Commander." "We're offering more. If humanity commits to this war, we'll win it. But we won't be your mercenaries. We'll be your partners, with full voting rights in the Council and protection under galactic law." "That's unprecedented," the Cerulean delegate protested. "Species must undergo decades of evaluation before gaining Council membership." "Unprecedented times call for unprecedented measures," Jake countered. "The Krathan won't wait for bureaucratic processes." "Every day we debate, more innocents die. You can either accept our help on our terms, or you can continue fighting alone. Your choice." The chamber erupted in discussion. Delegates argued with each other in dozens of languages, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. Jake stood calmly at the center of it all, his team forming a protective circle around him. After 20 minutes, Saphira's voice cut through the chaos. "We will vote. All in favor of accepting humanity into the Galactic Council as provisional members, with full military cooperation against the Krathun Empire. Signal your approval." Lights began to appear throughout the chamber, representing votes from the various delegations. Jake watched the tally climb, his expression neutral despite the tension coiling in his gut. Green lights for approval, red for denial, yellow for abstention. The count was close, far closer than he had hoped. When the final vote registered, Zafira spoke again. The motion passes by a margin of 3 votes. Humanity is hereby granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council, contingent upon successful military operations against the Terran Empire and a full cultural assessment within 5 standard years. Jake exhaled slowly. Thank you, High Arbiter. You won't regret this decision. I hope you're right, Commander, for all our sakes. 2 weeks later, Jake found himself aboard the newly christened human flagship, the Defiant, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed anything else in the human fleet. Around him, a task force of 30 human warships prepared for their first major offensive. They were joined by 40 vessels from the Dravian Imperium and a dozen support ships from smaller Council species. The target was Krathan Station Omega-7, a massive military installation that served as the staging ground for raids into Dravian space. Intelligence suggested the station housed nearly 50,000 Krathun soldiers, 300 combat vessels, and enough firepower to level a planet. Amy stood at the tactical station, her fingers moving across holographic controls. All ships report ready, Commander. The Dravian contingent is in position. We can begin the assault whenever you give the word. Jake studied the tactical display. The station hung in the void like a mechanical spider, its arms bristling with weapons. Defensive platforms surrounded it in a sphere that extended for thousands of kilometers in every direction. By conventional military doctrine, taking such a fortification would require a force 3 times their size and would result in catastrophic casualties. But humans didn't follow conventional doctrine. Kevin, what's the status of the infiltration team? Lieutenant Brandon Cole reports his team is in position inside the station's lower dock. Kevin replied. They've been there for 72 hours, disguised as Thraxian maintenance workers. The Krathan never suspected a thing. Jake smiled. The benefits of being unknown. Once you show your face, you lose that advantage. Tell Brandon to initiate on my mark. Lisa, Ryan, are your fighter wings ready? Carter flight is ready, Ryan confirmed. Web flight standing by, Lisa added. Jake took a deep breath and opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Commander Morrison. In a few moments, we're going to hit the Krathun harder than they've ever been hit before. They think they're safe behind their defenses. They think their station is impregnable. They're wrong. Remember your training, trust your crewmates, and follow the plan. Let's show the galaxy what humans can do. All ships, begin the assault! The Defiant's engines flared to life, pushing the massive vessel forward. Around it, the human fleet accelerated in perfect formation, their approach calculated to exploit weaknesses in the station's defensive grid that Kevin's analysts had spent weeks identifying. The Krathan sensors detected them almost immediately. Alarms blared across Omega-7, and defensive batteries swiveled to track the approaching threat. Thousands of weapons opened fire simultaneously, filling the space between the station and the human fleet with death. But the human ships were already moving, weaving through the incoming fire with precision that seemed impossible for vessels of their size. The Defiant's shields absorbed hits that would have destroyed lesser ships, while its escort frigates darted between defensive platforms like sharks among a school of fish. Now, Brandon, Jake ordered. Inside the station, Lieutenant Brandon Cole and his team of 12 special operators shed their disguises and activated their combat gear. They had spent 3 days mapping the station's internal structure, identifying critical systems and planting charges in key locations. Brandon pressed the detonator. The explosions ripped through Omega-7's power grid, plunging entire sections into darkness. Emergency systems struggled to compensate, but the humans had sabotaged those too. Within seconds, the station's defensive fire slackened as batteries lost power. All fighters launched, Jake commanded. The Defiant's hangar bays opened, disgorging 200 fighter craft that screamed toward the crippled station. Lisa led one wing, Ryan the other, their pilots flying with a skill born from countless hours in simulation and live training. They swept through the defensive platforms, their weapons carving paths of destruction. The Dravian vessels followed, their heavier ships targeting the station's main structures. General Korthax commanded the Dravian contingent personally, his voice booming across the tactical channel. Humans fight with honor and skill. We are proud to call you allies. Jake acknowledged the compliment with a nod. Focus fire on the command spire. Once that's down, their coordination will collapse. The combined fleet concentrated its firepower on the station's central tower, a massive structure that housed the Krathan command center. Shields flickered and failed under the relentless assault. Hull plating vaporized. Internal explosions lit up the structure from within. Brandon's voice crackled over the comm. Commander, we've secured the main reactor. The Krathun are trying to initiate a self-destruct sequence. Can you stop it? Already done, sir. We've locked them out of the primary systems. The station is yours. Jake smiled grimly. All ships, cease fire. Broadcast surrender terms on all Krathun frequencies. The fleet halted its attack, weapons still trained on the crippled station. For a long moment, silence filled the comm channels. Then a Krathun voice responded, speaking in broken galactic standard. We surrender. Cease your attack. We surrender. The command deck of the Defiant erupted in cheers. Amy pumped her fist in the air. Kevin allowed himself a rare smile. Even the normally stoic Dravian liaison officers celebrated with their distinctive chest-thumping gesture. Jake remained focused on the tactical display. Amy, organize boarding parties. I want that station secured within the hour. Kevin, start analyzing their computer systems. I want every bit of intelligence they have on Krathan fleet movements and installations. Yes, sir. As his crew worked, Jake walked to the view screen and stared at the captured station. It was a significant victory, but he knew it was just the beginning. The Krathan Empire was vast, with hundreds of systems and thousands of warships. This single battle wouldn't end the war, but it would change how the war was fought. Word would spread throughout the galaxy. Humans were no longer myths or legends. They were real, they were deadly, and they were fighting on the side of the Galactic Council. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and everyone would have to adjust to the new reality. 6 months passed in a blur of combat operations. The human fleet, now expanded to include 5 dreadnoughts and over 200 support vessels, carved a path through Krathun space. Station after station fell. Fleet after fleet scattered. The Krathan, who had terrorized the galaxy for generations, found themselves on the defensive for the first time in their history. But victory came with a price. Jake stood in the medical bay of the Defiant, looking down at Captain Ryan Hughes. Ryan had taken a plasma bolt to the chest during the assault on Krathun Prime, the Empire's heavily defended homeworld. The medical team had saved his life, but he would need months of recovery. How do you feel? Jake asked. Ryan managed a weak smile. Like I got hit by a plasma bolt. But we won, didn't we? Took their homeworld? We took it. The Krathun government has agreed to peace terms. The war is over. About time. I'm getting too old for this. Jake chuckled. You're 32? 32 years of combat operations. That's like 100 in regular people years. Ryan's expression grew serious. What happens now? We've proven ourselves to the Council. We've ended the Krathun threat. Do we go home? Some of us will. But the galaxy is a dangerous place, Ryan. The Krathun weren't the only aggressive empire out there. The Council wants us to stay to help maintain the peace. So we become galactic peacekeepers. Something like that. Jake left Ryan to rest and made his way to the conference room. The senior staff was already assembled. Amy, Kevin, Lisa, and a dozen other officers who had distinguished themselves during the campaign. Also present was Ambassador Kelvin Thorne, who had become humanity's primary liaison to the Council, and General Korthax, representing the Dravian Imperium. Commander Morrison, Kelvin began as Jake took his seat. The Council has completed its review of humanity's provisional membership. Given your performance during the Krathun War, they're prepared to grant full membership status. That's good news, Jake said. What are the conditions? No conditions, actually. You've more than proven your value to the galactic community. However, there is a request. The Council wants to establish a joint military force with human leadership to respond to threats like the Krathun. They're calling it the Galactic Defense Force. Kevin leaned forward. They want us to lead their military? They want humans to train and command a coalition force, Kelvin clarified. Species from across the Council would contribute ships and personnel, but humans would provide the tactical doctrine and overall command structure. Lisa whistled softly. That's a lot of responsibility. It's also a lot of trust, Amy added. 6 months ago, they thought we were myths. Now they want us to protect the entire galaxy? They've seen what we can do, General Corthax rumbled. They've watched humans turn the tide of a war that many thought unwinnable. My people have fought alongside yours. We've seen your courage, your skill, your unwillingness to surrender in the face of impossible odds. If any species can lead the galaxy's defense, it's humanity. Jake considered the proposal carefully. It represented everything humanity had worked toward: recognition and acceptance from the galactic community. But it also meant commitment, responsibility for the safety of billions of beings across thousands of worlds. I'll need to consult with Earth's government, Jake said. This isn't a decision I can make alone. Of course, Kelvin agreed. The Council understands. Take whatever time you need. The meeting continued for another hour, discussing logistics and potential challenges. When it finally ended, Jake found himself alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. So many worlds out there, so many species, all looking to humanity for protection. Amy found him there an hour later. Penny, for your thoughts? Just thinking about how far we've come? A year ago we were hiding in the dark, watching from the shadows. Now we're being asked to lead the galaxy's defense. Are you going to accept? Jake turned to face her. What do you think we should do? Amy was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. I think we have an opportunity to make a real difference. The galaxy is full of peaceful species that can't defend themselves against predators like the Krathun. We can protect them. We can create something better. At what cost? We'll be committing human lives, human resources. Some of our people will die defending species we barely know. Some of our people died in this war. Ryan almost died. But he said it himself, we won. We saved billions of lives, ended a threat that had plagued the galaxy for generations. That means something, Jake. That has value. Jake nodded slowly. You're right. It does have value, and I think Earth's government will see that too. So you'll recommend acceptance? I'll recommend we take the job, but on our terms. We'll lead the defense force, train the troops, set the doctrine. But we won't be anyone's attack dogs. We fight when necessary, not when convenient. We protect the innocent, not political interests, Amy smiled. That's the Commander Morrison I know. Always making things complicated. Someone has to. Otherwise, we'd just be another empire, using force to impose our will. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, on a small blue planet in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, humanity's leaders were debating their future. Jake knew what he would tell them when he returned home. He would tell them about the species they had saved, the allies they had made, the peace they had forged. He would tell them that humanity had been given a gift, a chance to be something more than what they had been. And he would tell them about the responsibility that came with that gift, the burden of being the galaxy's protectors. 3 days later, Jake stood once again before the Galactic Council. This time, he wasn't requesting anything. He was delivering Earth's answer to their proposal. The United Earth government has reviewed the Council's request, Jake announced, his voice carrying through the chamber. We accept the responsibility of leading the Galactic Defense Force. Humanity will stand with the peaceful species of this galaxy, defending them against aggression and tyranny. We will train your soldiers, command your fleets, and protect your worlds. Not because we seek power or glory, but because it's the right thing to do. Zephyra's form pulsed with colors that Jake's implants interpreted as approval. The Council welcomes Earth's decision. From this day forward, humanity is recognized as a full member of the Galactic Council, with all rights and privileges that entails. The chamber erupted in celebration. Delegates from hundreds of species applauded in their various ways. Kevin allowed himself a broad smile. Amy wiped away a tear. Lisa and Ryan, watching from the medical bay via holographic link, raised their hands in victory. Jake stood at the center of it all, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. Humans were no longer myths or legends. They were real, they were here, and they were ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy threw at them. The age of humanity had begun not with conquest or domination, but with service and sacrifice. It was a legacy worth fighting for, a future worth protecting. And as Jake looked out at the assembled species of the Galactic Council, he knew that together they could build something extraordinary. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.